Men, today I'm going to get real with you. Really real. Because what I'm about to talk about is something that's happening to men far too often, and it's ruining their lives. What am I talking about? Playing the protector. White knighting, if you will. Look, I get it. As men, we're raised from birth to step up and step in. That it's our job, our duty to protect, especially women and children. That we're supposed to help, to be the hero, no matter what the cost. But all too often, that cost is a price far too high to pay. Sure, doing the so-called right thing is often appreciated, but every now and then the story flips, and when it does, no one tells us the fine print. Well, today I'm going to. I'm going to peel back the onion on some of the realities that men need to be aware of so they can make the right decision if and when the time comes. And let me be clear here. I'm not taking a position either way. My feeling is you and only you can decide if you should come to the aid of someone in trouble. Mostly because you and only you are going to face the consequences if there are any. All right, let's dive in. Welcome back to Men Need to Be Heard, the channel where we talk about the things that no one else wants to touch, especially when it comes to the issues men and boys face in today's society. If this is your first time here, welcome. My name is Dan, and today's topic is what can happen when a man tries to do the right thing. Not too long ago, I did a video talking about how men often face false allegations from the very people that they came to the rescue of. You can check that video out if you want. I'll drop a link in the description below. But today I want to illustrate another scenario, one most men aren't even aware of. And I'm going to do so by sharing the story of two men who tried to help, only to end up paying a very high price. First, let's talk about a very recent case, one you might have heard of in the news, one that happened just a few weeks ago in Washington, D.C. Edward Coristine, otherwise known as Big Balls, tried to come to the aid of a woman who was being accosted and ended up getting his ass kicked. For those not familiar, Coristine, aka Big Balls, was a 19-year-old. Yes, 19-year-old, who worked for DOGE, the Department of Government Efficiency. Something many have gone to great lengths to point out, as if that has any relevance. But I digress. Anyway, Big Balls was out and about around 3 a.m., walking a woman to her car. According to the police reports, about 10 juveniles approached, making demands and threats. Coristine pushed the woman into the car to protect her and then turned to face the threat. Long story short, they beat him badly. They broke his nose, gave him a serious concussion, stole his iPhone and some other belongings. But here's the kicker. Once the story went public, was he treated as a hero? Yeah, by some. But there are also plenty of others who are mocking him.
It's kind of funny that Big Balls got beat up by a bunch of kids.
Saying, what was he doing out at 3 a.m.? Others are making fun of his nickname as if stepping in to protect a woman and taking on 10 people to do so makes him weak instead of brave. Some have even rewritten the narrative, turning him from protector to naive guy. They're literally calling him out for doing the right thing. Now, I know some of you might say, but Dan, that's just one case. Is it though? Let's talk about another one. Let's fly out to San Francisco, the home of the homeless, where things are so bad they actually had to set up a citywide department to clean human waste off the streets. In this case, a man named Bob Henry intervened last spring to help two young women who were under attack. Women who were being threatened by a group of men who said they were going to kill them. Mr. Henry stepped in. He tried to protect. And what was the end result? He ended up getting severely beaten and robbed himself. One article said he was still getting dizzy and struggling to stand weeks afterward. Now, to be fair in this case, the two women were grateful. But by and large, Mr. Henry didn't get the hero's reward. Just victimization. Now, I could cite a few dozen more examples like these, and I'm sure there's dozens more we don't even know about. But I think you get the point. Coming to the aid of a so-called damsel in distress could lead to you becoming the victim, or worse, a corpse. Again, let me stress this. I'm not telling you whether to intervene or not. I'm simply saying make that decision knowing the possible repercussions. So let's talk about what these cases tell us, what they teach us. First off, that risk is real. The assumption that I'll step in, I'll help, and I'll just walk away doesn't always apply. You may get harmed or even killed. Next, the protector isn't protected. Society expects men to protect, but when they do, often they're not automatically shielded. In fact, men often become the target of the beating and of the blame. Sometimes they may even end up getting arrested or facing civil suits from the very people that they helped. You might think it's the right thing to do to stop and help a woman with a flat tire, but one wrong word, one misread gesture, and suddenly you're being arrested for harassment or assault. And when that happens, narrative control is weak. After the event, the helping man gets mocked, vilified, or treated like he messed up, just like we're seeing with Mr. Big Balls. This is especially true when a woman is involved. Why? Simple. Because society needs her to be the victim, the only victim. So the story flips. Was it mansplaining? Was it necessary? Was he dangerous? Did he make her unsafe by helping? It happens more than you think. A lot more. And as I've said before, the allegation risk to men is very real. Even though it didn't happen in these two cases, it easily could have. If something went wrong, you could end up being blamed or facing false allegations from the very person you were trying to help. That's a fact, an absolute fact. And it's one too many men ignore until it's too late. And that's why I say men must think. Think now. Think ahead of time. Think before you jump into action. Think before you grab your protector cape. You need to ask yourself, men, what's the environment? What's possible? What's my backup? What's my exit? Because the cost might be higher than the praise. As I said earlier, men are taught from birth that it's their job to step in and protect, and that somehow they'll be treated like a white knight if they do. But now let's talk about the mockery piece again that I mentioned earlier. Mr. Big Balls got beaten. The media printed his photo. Trolls online now are mocking his name. Others have questioned why was he out so late, or was the woman really in danger? Meanwhile, the real story that he saved her and got hurt doing it is getting buried. That matters because it sends a message, one men need to hear loud and clear, that when you protect, you might pay, and pay dearly. At any moment, the reaction can downplay your action, or worse, turn you into the villain. Don't believe me? Go ask Daniel Penny, who had his life and reputation destroyed for coming to the aid of a woman on a New York subway. So here's what you need to think about, men. Here's your mind shift. As I said, it's up to you and only you to decide whether to step in. And all I'm saying is if you're about to, run the checklist. Is the threat real? Is there imminent, immediate danger? Do I have an exit? If things go sideways, can I remove myself? Is there any help or backup for me? Are there witnesses, cameras, other people? Am I prepared for the consequences? Not just the potential physical harm, but the narrative harm. Could someone say I overreacted? Could the woman say she didn't want me to intervene? And the biggest question of all, am I doing this because I have to or want to, or because that's what I'm expected to do? That's what men do. Because if it's the latter, you might be playing into a role society has forced on you without any protection. All right, men, let's bring it back to you. You see a woman being harassed or at risk in some way. You feel like you should step in. Great. Honorable even. But before taking action, running that checklist and knowing what we've just covered means you're thinking. You're being smart, strategic, not just reactive. Men, that makes you stronger, not weaker. That makes you prudent, not a pansy. Because real strength isn't blind heroism. Real strength is aware heroism. So what's the bottom line? 2 men, 2 acts of helping, 2 harsh payoffs. One, big balls in D.C., the other, a good Samaritan in San Francisco. In both cases, the narrative says man helps woman, but the reality says man risks himself and then gets mocked and ridiculed for doing so. The risk is real, men, and that risk matters. Men, hear me. If you're going to help, help on your terms. Don't just plunge in because it's expected. Paddle yourself. Know the water. Know the current. Be ready for the fight and the aftermath. Because while society will tell you you'll be a white knight if you do so, far too often you won't be. And you might even end up dead. All right, man, I want to hear what you think down in the comments. Is it a man's job to protect? Is it his duty? Should men be willing to sacrifice themselves, even their lives, to help a woman in distress? Should they be mocked, ridiculed, and left unprotected if they do? Drop me a line below and let me know. And if this hit home and you want to hear more about the issues men face and how to overcome them, make sure you're subscribed and hit that notification bell. Every day we're cutting through the noise and speaking the truth that men actually need to hear. All right, till next time, this is Dan. Stay smart, stay safe, and have an awesome day.